Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Guruve Namaha. Srimad Padvakya Praman Paravarim Vedamar Pratishta Panacharya Nikila Darshan Samanvayacharya Sanatan Vedic Dharm Pratishta Pan Sat Sampradaya Paramacharya Bhakti Yoga Rasa Avatar Bhagavadanand Shri Vibhushi Shri Kripaluji Maharaj JagadGuru Tam Swami Shri 1008 Shri Kripaluji Maharaj He Akaran Karuna Patita Pavan Shri Krishna तुमसे विमुख होने के कारण अनादिकाल से हमने अनंत अनंत दुख पाए एवं पा रहे हैं। पाप करते करते अंतःकरण इतना मलिन हो चुका है कि रसिकों द्वारा यह जान भी अपनी वात्सल्यमय दृष्टि से हमारी प्रतीक्षा कर रहे हो, तुम्हारी शरण में नहीं आ पाता। O my divine beloved, causelessly merciful Sri Krishna, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, having ignored you since time immemorial, committing sins life after life, I've been suffering. Even though your saints are telling me you're waiting for me with arms outstretched to embrace me, with a divine life to grace me, still I fail to surrender to you completely. All glories to Sri Sri Radhe Shyam. All glories to Sri Maharaj. All glories to all saints and sages. All glories to all aspiring souls. Thank you for joining me. The mind, our best friend or our worst enemy. The uncontrolled mind remains one's worst enemy. In the scriptures, it is described in this way. The uncontrolled mind is like a characterless wife, an unfaithful wife who is in the husband's house, planning the husband's murder along with her lover. This same mind that we have, if it's uncontrolled, you can put a rope around your own neck. So the mind has to be controlled. But to control the mind by our own efforts is futile. It's impossible. This mind is a son of the material nature, Maya. Maya is a power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is a power of God. So only the governor of Maya, God himself, can control his power. No one can control God's power. Only by God's grace, therefore, can one control his mind. Therefore, one needs to surrender to a God-realized soul. Who is God in the earth? God takes many avatars. He comes as the saints who propagate his message and help the fallen souls to know and understand God, to teach them those God-realized saints, they are no less than God in the earth. Then God comes as like Amsha-avatar, a plenary expansion like Ved Vyas, who has compiled all the scriptures. And then he comes as Purna-avatar, like Sri Ram and Sri Krishna, to return society to righteous path and to destroy evildoers. So God is always present in the earth as the saints. This mind is so difficult that it is described Vijitarachika Vayur Viradanta Manas Durgam. It means that even those great saints in the golden age, Satyug, who were able to control their senses and even control the breathing process, failed in controlling their mind. Sri Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita in 7:14 that Daivihi esha gunamai mama maya durachaya mameva prapajante maya metam tarantite. That this very alluring, the world is very alluring. The comforts and luxuries of the world is very alluring. So Krishna describes this material energy, this very alluring power of mind called Maya, is very difficult to overcome. Impossible, as it is said in the Bhagavatam, that it is Durgam, impossible to overcome. Only by God's grace it can be overcome. So Krishna is saying this very alluring power of mind called material nature, comprised of material goodness, passion, and ignorance, is very difficult to overcome. However, the one who attains my grace by surrendering to me only, he can easily cross and overcome this material energy and thus controlling the mind. Once in the history of India, there was a great saint whose name was Rishabh. Maharaj Rishabh was a plenary expansion of Sri Krishna, and he became completely renounced. He gave up his kingdom to his son Bharat, and he started to live on the streets like a mendicant. He immersed himself in meditation and became so highly God conscious that the siddhas mean the powers that one attains through meditation. One can appear, disappear. One can make himself small like an atom. One can make himself as big as a mountain. One can fly in the air. One can expand his body into many forms. One could shape shift. Many things you can do through yogic meditation. So Maharaj Rishabh attained that level where these personified forms of the siddhis, Anima, Lagima, Barima, they came to him and said, Maharaj, we are here to serve you. Maharaj Rishabh, completely God realized, said, you're here to serve me? You are all relatives of this same mind that has destroyed many such yogis who have attained you, now feeling that they can perform miracles such as appear and disappear, stretch their hands out and anything they want can appear in their hand. They can fly, then you become proud of such powers, and this pride, the next thing happens is you fall down. So get out from here, Maharaj Rishabh said to those siddhis. Now his son Maharaj Bharat also followed his father in renouncing the world so that he could pursue God consciousness. Maharaj Bharat went to the forest and quickly became highly evolved in spiritual practice, to the point where he was known as Jivan Mukt, meaning he is now God realized even while in this body. However, one day Maharaj Bharat was in the river offering Surya Pranam, which is you take some water from the river in the early before daybreak and you offer it to the sun god. At the same time, one day there was the loud roaring of a lion, and a deer who was grazing at the river bank got so frightened. This doe jumped into the river out of fear of that lion's roar, and being pregnant, gave birth while in the river. The doe swam across to the other side of the river, leaving the fawn in the river struggling. Maharaj Bharat, seeing this struggle of the fawn, they picked up that young deer and took it to his ashram. Out of compassion, started to feed it, nurture it. That deer, every animal has the propensity to love, began to love Bharat, and wherever Bharat would go, the little deer would follow him. Bharat also started to become attached to that little deer. He would feed it, sleep near it, and so they became inseparable. So Maharaj Bharat, on his dying bed, said to his disciples, "You should take care of this deer," and he died remembering the deer. And the rule is, who you die remembering, who you die thinking of, you will get that and that only. So, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatanta kalevaram tam tam eva iti kunteya saratad bhavaha bhavitaha. In chapter 7 verse 6, Sri Krishna says that yam yam vapi smaran bhavam, whoever one remembers while leaving his body at the time of death, he attains that and that only, without a doubt. Why? Because smaran bhavam, you have again and again become absorbed in thoughts of that or whoever through your life. And now that person is likely to come to mind. Who you are most absorbed in thoughts of are who you are going to think of while you're leaving this body. So that's why practicing God consciousness is necessary throughout your life. So the likelihood of remembering God while leaving your body, that possibility will be very certain. So Bharat became a deer in his next life. And because he had already gained the power of Jivan Mukh, a liberated soul, God gave him the quality of Jati Smaran as a blessing. Jati Smaran means one who is capable of remembering his past lives. So Bharat, even as a deer, stayed around the saintly persons in their ashram, and when he gave up that body of a deer, he was born into a Brahman's family, and he, remembering his past lives and remember the mistake of now having been so loving to a deer, he became attached to a deer and died remembering a deer and had to go through the body of a deer before now he is born as a human in a Brahman's family. With this awareness of his past lives, Bharat became completely detached from all relationships, and he did not have any interest in the pursuit of luxuries and comforts of this world. He cared for nothing and wanted nothing. He didn't care if someone insulted him. He didn't care if someone praised him. In fact, he was as if he was dumb and foolish. So they began to call him Jad. Jad means he's a fool, and he was known as Jadabara. So my dear aspiring souls, be careful of what quality of person you become attached to, or what you become attached to. My suggestion is, if you want this human life to be successful, become so absorbed in thoughts of God that you become attached to God, and when you leave this body remembering God, you will attain God. So how does attachment develop? And the reason for attachment is this only. Our nature is to desire complete freedom from suffering and to attain perfect happiness. Our entire drive, our entire motive, our natural being, our nature is to desire perfect happiness and freedom from suffering. So, by considering something a source of happiness, we start to think of it again and again. Jayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodhat bijayate krodhat bhavati sanmohaha sanmohat smriti vibramaha smriti brahmsad buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashate. When one starts to think of something as desirable, that it is a source of happiness, someone or something, you get attached to that person or to that object of desire. From that attachment springs up desire. And from desire, a seed of anger is planted. Why? Because every desire comes with the expectation of fulfillment. If the desire is fulfilled, just a greater desire is born, so you're still left yearning and craving for something more. And if it's not fulfilled, the expectation, then you will get angry. So a seed of anger accompanies each desire. And when this anger grows, the first casualty of severe anger, uncontrolled anger, is a loss of reason. So when anger grows, there is delusion, sanmohaha. From delusion comes forgetfulness, a confusion of memory, which now disallows you to recognize what is good and what is bad, what is righteous, what is unrighteous. With a confusion of memory, there's a loss of reason. With a loss of reason, one goes to complete ruin. Then you can do anything in severe and great anger. You can kill, you can murder, you can do anything. You can curse your mother, your father. Maybe later you'll say, oh, what did I do? What will people think? But in anger, you become a helpless victim of your anger, of the mind's anger. So this is verse 62, 63, chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. Now the Lord does not only give you the problem, which is uncontrolled mind, He also gives you a solution. In chapter 2, verse 70 and 72, He says, Apuryam anamachala pratishtam Samudaram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. That just as the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, is vast, it's already full. Thousands of rivers flow into it, and it remains the same. In the same way, a man who has control of his mind, a saintly person who has control of his mind, a man of wisdom, countless desires enter into his mind. You can't help but see and hear, so desires enter into his mind, but that wise man remains the same. but not the man who nurtures desires, not the man who entertains such desires. He can have no peace of mind. And the Lord goes on to say in the next verse, 71, Vihaya kamanyaha sarvan pumanscharti nishpriyaha nirmamo nirankaraha sashanti marigachate. The one, that wise man who gives up all cravings of the mind, recognizing that I don't need all of these things. In fact, running after more than I need is just the loss of my peace of mind, as indicated in the previous verse. Because everything you want, accompanying each want, is the vital energy necessary for its acquisition. Then you may not be able to be truthful in the effort to acquire what you want. So you lose your righteousness. You lose your truthfulness. Then someone may be an obstacle in your path of achieving what you want or who you want. Some other boy wants the girl, and now you have set up a conflict in your mind. Now you will lose compassion. You may cheat, you may lie, you may do anything to satisfy your want. So your righteousness gets destroyed, your compassion gets destroyed in the pursuit of what you want. Lying, oh, that's okay to lie for what you want. It's just a white lie you tell yourself. So my dear aspiring souls, one who gives up all cravings of the mind and gives up the thirst, frees himself of the thirst for entertainment, for enjoyment, moving through this world without attachment to kith and kin, frees himself from the ego, the sense of possessiveness that anything is mine. Nothing here is mine in the world. If it was yours, you would be able to carry it with you when you leave this body. What is yours and what is mine is God, because He has always been with me and He will always be with me. God is the only one that you can truly claim is mine, because He is forever mine. In the world, nothing is mine because it's temporary. You're eternal. Why are you claiming what is temporary as your own? It's foolishness. So, God is suggesting that you remove your mind from the desires of the world and attach your mind to Him, desiring Him. This is what is called abhyasena to kuntiya vairagena chagriyate. Practice taking your mind from the world to God. Why? Why needs to be answered. Why? Because you have understood that the desires of the world are temporary and they will leave you frustrated because they either only bring greed or anger. Desire, greed, and anger are the three gates to hell. They are only sources of misery. You have given yourself the reason why you should now go to God, because God is described as Anand. You will get happiness from God. All the saints and sages in history have proven that, and the sacred scriptures have proven that. You need to accept that. When you accept that, then you will be able to follow that. Now, this is the reason to turn to God, right? So, if you turn your mind to God, the mind will become peaceful. Why? Because the mind becomes pure. The mind will become contented. One who is contented achieves peace of mind. Because God and the saints of God are pure, when you keep them in your mind will remain pure. If you keep people who are yet impure, worldly people in your mind, because their mind is impure, when you bring them in your mind, your mind will be filled with their qualities of passion and ignorance. So your mind will get even more impure when you bring unenlightened people in your mind. When you bring who is enlightened and God who is pure in your mind will retain its purity. And with a pure mind, you will constantly remember God. And God says in 8.5 of the Gita, Anta kalecha mameva smaran mukva kalevaram. Ya pratisa madbhavam yati nasyatra samseha. The one who attains enlightenment in this world, even at the last moment, he remembers me. Anta kale. Anta means last moment. Kale means moment in time. Anta kale. Such a person who is enlightened, who have constantly practiced to remember me, he naturally remembers me at the last moment. And then what? He attains my state. The one who leaves his body at the last moment remembering me, while leaving his body, he attains my state. Now what is God's state? God lives in an ever youthful, eternal body. All of God's divine associates. This material realm that seems endless and infinite, God lives in 3/4 of his kingdom. This material realm is just a quarter, even though it seems unfathomable, infinite. There's still 3/4 more of God's kingdom, which is transcendental to the material nature. It's beyond the material nature. Look, this is paper in book. This is a cloth. At the atomic dimension, all are atoms. And God's divine residence in his divine planets, everything there is made up of anti-material, antimatter, subatomic. But everything there is visible. You can hear everything, taste everything, touch everything, smell everything. But not with these material senses that are limited. You know, these senses are limited. God's senses and God's body, there's no limit. So there is form there. In this world, that divine energy is formless to us. It's subatomic. So the Lord says that whoever leaves his body remembering me at the time of death attains my state. You will have unlimited wealth, unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, in an unlimited life of a youthful, beautiful body. How will this be possible? You have to practice to remember God right now, all the time. Tato Brahma Jigyasa, the scripture is saying, now that you know, seek God, get to know God. Now that you know the truth, get to know God. So the Lord is saying, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudyacha. Mayarpito mano buddhir mameva yasya samseha. One who, in all places, at all times, fixes his mind on me and perform his duty. With your mind and intelligence set on God, you will easily attain God without doubt. So practice of remembering God is the easiest way. He is with me, he is with me. God is not far away. He resides with you in this body. This body is the temple of God, and you and God reside in this body. You need to constantly practice the awareness that he is with me, he is with me, he is with me. He is so close that it is described that Ya Atmani Tishtati, that God is the soul of your soul. God is within you, abides within you, and you abide within God. So remembrance of God is everything. The Lord says that in one verse in 8:14 of the Gita, Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yomam Smarati Nitya Saha. tasyaham sulabha parta nityayuktasya yoginaha. The one who at all places and at all times remembering, gives up the memory of the word ananya cheta, thinking of no other, thinking of God only at all places and at all times. Nitya smarati, all the time remembering. Such a person easily attains me, who leaves this body thinking of God, who lives his life right now always thinking of God. Then he's always with God, then he's always in control of his mind, then he's always contented, then he's always at peace. Such a person, why he attains God? By yoginaha nitya saha. He is always trying to have association with God, to have union with God. And this effort will bear its fruit through the constant practice of remembrance. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do so next Sunday at the same time. You will hear JagadGuru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj, who is an adept in God consciousness. He can truly educate you. Jai Shri Radhe.
तो राधे राधे गाऊं कालिंदी तट पर, वो तो भजो चरुहार, वो तो वंशी वट पर। मैं तो राधे राधे गाऊं कालिंदी तट पर, वो तो भजो चरुहार, वो तो वंशी वट पर।
That was a paid program, and the views and opinions expressed are those of the host and other speakers, and do not reflect the views and opinions of TVG Channel 28.